This is the Random Nontendo Podcast, episode 34, August 22nd, 2021. I am one of your hosts, Kevin. To my virtual left, we got Jason.
Hello. I'm wearing a Bidoof shirt.
To my virtual... What? Well, don't
I'm
interrupt me when I'm doing the...
That's how I'm greeting people. Is I go up to people when I wear the shirt and say I'm wearing a Bidoof shirt. Anyway, introduce Angel.
Well, there you go. You introduced Angel to my virtual right.
Oh, I thought that was going to be more after that. I am Angel. Just not wearing a Bidoof shirt.
Well, I thought you died for a second. How are you guys doing?
I'm wearing a Bidoof shirt, so great.
Damn, I don't know. I think I've been having like the best week ever. Like, I think especially after 2 days ago,
It used to be a VH1 show.
2 days ago?
No, VH1 would have like this weekly show called Best Week Ever.
Oh yeah, I remember that. It was a riff on Best Year Ever, or whatever it was called, which was, or Best Decade Ever, or whatever, where they did the like I love the 90s, I love the 80s, and the same show. They just whittled it down to smaller and smaller time frames.
Damn.
Yeah, but tell us about your week.
Yeah, so I mean, the biggest takeaway, at least like in my mind, is that I hit probably the biggest one. I guess I would say the second biggest milestone you could possibly hit in Hearthstone, which is finally achieving Legend class. And if you don't know what that means, it's essentially, I guess, reaching the highest rank possible you can reach outside of, I guess, your individual numerical rank, because obviously you can always go for like the top player in the world. But, you know, like most games, especially, you know, most team shooters, you go from like some kind of bronze equivalent to like a silver to a gold to a platinum to a diamond. And then from there you go to Legend. And playing this game for almost 6 years, this is something that I never thought I would ever do, because I typically don't like to play decks that are, I guess, meta, which, you know, like the games that you play, the decks that you play specifically to win the most possible, because you typically don't find them very fun. Like, I'll just typically just try to find the deck that I find the most fun to play, try to make that deck as most competitively viable as possible, and just see how far I can get with it. And usually I'll get far, but I would not really pass, maybe get to platinum status, which is below diamond, but never get to diamond. And to kind of break down a little more just what that means, every rank has 10 ranks within them. So you have, you know, bronze 10 through 1, diamond 10 through 1, and all those subdivisions. And each of those in between, like bronze 10, bronze 9, bronze 8, each of those has 3 stars in them. So essentially you have to win 3 games in each one to progress. And the nice thing that Hearthstone does is that at the end of each month, these rankings reset. So it's a very fast turnaround from when you become Legend to when you go back to like the lowest bottom of the barrel. But depending on how high you made it in the last season, you know, they call it a season a month, which, you know, it's not true. It's not what it is, but it is what it is. They give you these stars that essentially speed run you as fast as possible to where you last were, essentially. So last season, I think I made it to like platinum 4, and they gave me like 5 bonus stars that essentially every time I won, I would go up 5 levels. So for every 2 games that I won, I would go up 3 tiers. And if you win a couple games in a row, those stars double, so you could like really skyrocket up into where you last were. And then you don't get your bonus stars anymore. But what makes this particularly tough is that when you get to Diamond, specifically Diamond 5, those last 15 games, there is no more win streak bonus. Because when you win at least 3 games in a row, you get double stars, and it's kind of like a safety net. Like if you have the streak going, all right, cool, I could lose 1 game, and I technically I don't lose time. Like I still have that 1 security blanket game. But once you get to Diamond 5 and above, there is no more streak bonus. It's just, you have to win 15 games, essentially consecutively. Because if you lose, you know, you're going back down a tier. And you can only make progress, you know, through winning. There's no safety net. And that takes forever, because these decks at the top, like, for lack of a better term, it feels like no one's having fun. It's like I'm just playing these decks that like don't let you do anything. Because right now there are some decks that they tried nerfing them, but it didn't really help. And to give you a basic example without, over-explaining a card game that no one, if you don't know the rules to it, it's going to mean nothing. But essentially, usually most games are, you do an action, your opponent responds to that action, then you respond to their action, and back and forth. There is a back and forth. The deck that you're playing against at the top, there is no back and forth. You could do whatever you want, and your opponent doesn't really have to acknowledge what you do. They just kind of do their own song and dance for 2 or 3 turns, and then by the 4th and 5th turn, all of a sudden, you're just sitting there while you watch your life points drain, and there's literally nothing you can do about it. So, how did I even get to Legend? I played pretty much the 2 decks that I stick with is a Rogue deck because I love that class, and the Shaman deck. And it just so happened that the Shaman Elemental deck, which is kind of a straightforward play your monsters, nothing too overpowered about it, just play your monsters, attack, be strategic, don't overextend, blah, blah, blah. Like, it just happened to be really good against those top decks. There was still a real pain sometimes, and sometimes I would lose without even getting to touch my opponent. But you have to grind, and sooner or later, I managed to just get lucky. And, I mean, that's just part of any card game. Like, I just drew really good hands back to back. I felt like I always had an answer, and before I knew it, I got to that surreal point where I was just one game away. And I swear I was like, not shaking, but like, oh my God, like, this is it. This is finally going to happen. Because I don't know if Jason remembers, but I always kind of joke, especially, well, I know my brother does, but I always kind of say like, oh man, when I get Legend, that's like my equivalent of making like the credits roll in Hearthstone. Because
I can confirm this is a thing you have said. Yes, I'm here to vouch.
Because once you get that Legend rank, you get a card back that you only get at Legend rank. So even though my rank will reset, I will forever have that card back, and people will know like, oh man, this person made it a Legend. And like once you've reached the highest ranking, you kind of, there's not that pressure to like try to win as much as possible. Kind of goes away. It's just nice. It's almost like I can play even.
Like you've made it.
It's like I could play weaker decks that are really fun, but you just don't play because you wouldn't get a chance to really enjoy them. Now I could play them without ever feeling like, whatever. Or I could even just play unranked. Like, I don't really care that much about the ranked mode anymore. But the funny thing is that I didn't see coming. My brother-in-law just happened to be playing online as well because we're both like really into Hearthstone. And he was spectating my game because I messaged him like, I'm 1 game away. And then he's like, all right, cool. Like, I'm checking it out. And my opponent happened to be a rogue, and I'm like, damn, this is like the one class that the elementals like really struggle against. I play a card, they play a card, then I play another card, and then they're just sitting there idling, and then you see the little emote I concede, and then they just blow up. And I'm like, what? And then I was Legend, and I was like, okay. I didn't expect to get it that way, but I mean, we take those. And yeah, it feels great. That was kind of like my big gaming achievement. So I'm not sure how it's going to impact my Hearthstone playing. It's definitely going to make it, I'm definitely going to play a lot less, but I'm definitely still going to be playing it. But yeah, pretty hyped about that.
That's interesting. I wonder if you'll get like a reboost if Blizzard ever decides to release it on the Switch.
I'm still shocked it's not.
Maybe.
Like, what are you doing, Blizzard? I mean, actually, what are you doing, Blizzard's a question. A lot of answers these couple weeks.
That is a good point.
But in this instance, like, what are you doing, Blizzard?
Mm-hmm.
It seems like a no-brainer. Like,
it's such a no-brainer. I mean, Elder
it's
Scrolls
such a
has
Nintendo-y looking
like,
card game too. It's like pretty simple to pick up and play. Monetization,
it's
monetization is extremely friendly. Like, I'm telling you right now, like, I haven't paid. Usually, I'll pre-order expansions just because, at the time, this was like a couple years ago. Like, I really like to support the game because I literally dumped like probably thousands of hours into this. So, this time I priced it more like for time than like by card. Like, I don't really compare it to buying a physical card game because I feel like the value is put in different places, individual cards exactly. But you could craft cards here if you just disenchant the ones you already have. But point is, I've been making so much in-game currency just because of their new, I guess, the way experience is gained and the way they just give you coins. That usually it'll cost like $80 to get like a pack of 100 cards, which, you know, it's kind of a lot of money. It's definitely more than a typical game you buy on the shelf. But I mean, if you're playing it a ton, I mean, and if that's also kind of the only game you're playing, which I know a lot of people do, like, you know, you're getting your money's worth. But that being said, playing just for free, but just these two classes, just doing the quests every day, like I easily had more than enough coins to get over 100 cards for free every time a new expansion rolls around. And I think it obviously takes some time to get to that point, just because, you know, you need to have built a good deck at some point, but they've been making it really easy. So, I mean, as far as free-to-play game monetization goes, it's definitely one of my favorites, just like Brawl Stars, and I would say Pokemon Unite is kind of there. There's some stuff that bothers me, but yeah, I would say this one is like a good price to look at. Also, just the menus. Like, I really want Jason to just like look at the menu and the UI of this game, just because unlike Pokemon Unite and other free-to-play games, like sometimes like the menus feel either like a little laggy, they feel like they're cluttered with like all these different menu options. Like, oh, you click over here to get your rewards from there. You click over there, you get your rewards from that thing. Like, oh, like things are just all over the place.
I can very quickly get on a high horse about how awful free-to-plays have made video game menu systems and unlocking things in video games, because there is no reason that any game should have 5 different currencies that all do different things and all have 4 sub-menus deep of options. No reason. Like, if video games are supposed to get more accessible to a broader audience, this is the opposite. And I realize they're sort of training people as they go, so it becomes accessible. But, like, it's insane when you boot up Mario Kart Tour, and it's like, here's 7 menus of different things. It's like, or you boot up any other Mario Kart, it's like 2 options and you play. So, like, it's yeah, I hate the free-to-play menu world that we now live in so much.
Which just, like, which is why I speak so highly about Hearthstone, because if you look at the menu, it's so simplistic. Like, there's literally just one type of currency, just coins, which are the ones you get for playing the game. Otherwise, you know, it's real money. There is something called dust, but, like, that isn't even, like, present anywhere in the main menu, because dust is something you get from essentially discarding cards you don't want to use, and you use that dust to craft cards you don't have. But that's, like, in the library menu or whatever. So it's, like, everything is just put away. Like, it was one of the main reasons I was kind of put off by Teppen, the Capcom card game, which is like as close to a like Nintendo card game that I could think of. Because, you know, there's like a Phoenix Wright. There are Phoenix Wright cards. There's like Street Fighter cards. There's Monster Hunter cards. Like, why isn't this like my go-to game? Just because, I don't know, there's like menus, like the menus. There's like 5 different limits, there's 5 different currencies that are like really annoying, like to figure out like which one is for which. Like, getting packs is kind of like a weird, it feels like I have to figure out the shop menu versus like the main menu versus even how to get into the game. It's like,
you know what I think it is? It just dawned on me as we're talking about it. You know what I think the issue is? When they switch to free to play and they do all these menus and they do all these currencies, it is no longer the game developer's vision of what makes the best gaming experience. It is the business side having more and more of a controlling stake in how the game is built. And I can't think of a single other format where like the business side interferes in such an overt way. Like, obviously with movies and shows, there's notes from the studio and they shape it and they do stuff like like, you know, we were talking last episode about Suicide Squad versus The Suicide Squad and how one was cut by the trailer house and one was cut by like the actual director and, you know, that sort of thing. So obviously there's some of that, but it's never so in your face where it's literally in any other medium where it's like, hey, if you want to do this thing, you need to give us money right now or you wait. Like, it's not like you're watching Netflix and halfway through an episode, or like right now I'm in the middle of White Lotus on HBO Max. It's not like halfway through episode 3 where I left off last night. They're like, okay, are you curious what happens next with this character? Wait 2 hours or pay us $5 right now. Like, that doesn't happen. Like, it's just such a weird game-specific thing that just disrupts the flow and the vision and all that so much that it's just so annoying, more so than any other. Like, even software doesn't do this. Like, you may have to have a subscription, but it's not like you're using Photoshop, and after 2 hours of Photoshop, they're like, well, you didn't pay for a subscription. So if you'd like to continue using Photoshop, specifically the Magic Wand tool, you can use some blue Adobe gems. But if you're looking to cut or paste, try out the green, like Photoshop Element coin or something. It's like, what? No, like it's games are the only one that do it, and it's so annoying. And it also leans so heavily on psychology that's used for gambling and for addiction and stuff like that. It's just so like icky feeling compared to any other format. And I think that even more than the menus just being convoluted, what actually rubs me the wrong way about it.
Yeah,
that's soapbox number 2.
No, yeah, and even in games where, like, you know, they're supposed to be paid for everything up front, like Knockout City, like, it still kind of feels that way. Like, maybe not as bad as others, but like I guess the residue is there, or just like the blueprint is there.
Now it's like standard.
Yeah,
that's what's weird. Is like even games that don't need it, because so many people, and like the younger generation, I feel like an old man yelling at the clouds, because so many people like understand that sort of design motif of how the menus work. Yeah, Knockout City does it with all in-game currencies, and it's just like, well, why don't you just like simplify it? Like, we don't need 3 layers. You don't need 3 layers. There's no reason for 3 layers, but you're doing it anyway just because like that's what people are conditioned to thinking. Like, I don't know if this is me getting old or what, but like it really has been kind of like, I love Knockout City and I highly recommend everyone check it out, but like it still kind of rubs me the wrong way in Knockout and Rocket League and all these games I do enjoy playing. It's partly why I've never gotten super into the mobile Nintendo games, because it's just like, it's just so many layers.
Which is kind of why I'm surprised that at least specifically Hearthstone has been, I guess, kind of free from this, like compared to other games. Like, I don't know, like, I want to say it was always free to play. I know it had like a model change recently.
What, Hearthstone?
Yeah, but I'm not.
Yeah, Hearthstone was always free to play.
Yeah, so I don't know. Like, maybe they just had the right designers, or maybe the right people that push back on like how upfront they want to be about taking your money. Because
I think it probably helped that they were among the first out the gate with a real successful free to play model.
Yeah,
so there wasn't necessarily a reason for them to change it, because they had a large user base and they had money flowing, and yeah,
because I can't think of another game that comes as close to being as unintrusively, here, just come and have fun, than Hearthstone is. Like, as much as I enjoy Brawl Stars, like that one, luckily, you rarely have to really go to the store to enjoy the game. Like, they just kind of keep throwing free stuff at you that it almost doesn't matter. But they do still have, you know, all that currency, all those other things that are kind of annoying. But yeah, happy to hit that milestone. Monetization, cool. Come on, game industry, figure that out. And yeah, well, I guess that was my week.
Kevin, what did you achieve in video games this week?
In this week, I finally leveled up. So I was doing the math. I play a lot of Genshin Impact. You guys already know. I talk about it on this podcast. I talk about it on Random Nintendo.
Mm-hmm.
I play a lot of Genshin Impact. So we're about to get into some math right now, okay? So whenever a new patch is released, or not even a patch, but like a big patch, like when they expand like the story of the game,
mm-hmm.
a brand new banner will show up. Banners are the sort of events where you will roll to get new characters and weapons, right? So for currently the banner that's on right now in the game, it's called what's it called? It's called Tapestry of Golden Flames. Okay, and when you roll, you roll with these things called wishes. Okay, but you could roll 10 wishes at a time, and when you roll 10 wishes at a time, though you have a higher chance of getting the 5-star character. The percentage that you get that 5-star character goes up from 0.6% to 1.6%, right?
Mm-hmm.
You are guaranteed this 5-star character after 90 rolls. So that means that you would need each roll, each wish is 160 gems, or primo gems, I just call them gems. So that means every 10 rolls, that's 1,600 gems. So to get it's 1,600 times 9, you would need 14,400 gems to get the guaranteed 5-star character, right? And the 5-star characters are, they're supposed to be stronger than the 4 stars, obviously. They're supposed to be these rare characters that have cooler abilities and stuff like that. Now, to maximize that character's potential, you have to get 7 of those characters. You have to get your initial one, and then if you roll that character again, instead of being like, oh, you just roll this character again, no, you are then able to sort of level up that character's abilities. So that means, what did I say? It was like 14,400?
I think.
Times 7. You would need 100,800 gems to fully maximize a character. Okay, now if you do your dailies, you get 60 gems. So that means 180 divided by 60. It would take you 1,680 days.
Oh my god.
To do this. To get that 5-star character 7 times. Now these banners only appear for about 18 days. So, what do I do? Do I just pump money into this game? Or do I just say, and it took me all this time to realize, like, that's a lot of money. Should I even bother? Because I have 5-star characters that I really like, but do I go buck wild with the money to get them to their full potential?
See, this is the perfect embodiment of the free-to-play thing that I was ranting about. Yeah.
This is the opposite of Hearthstone.
Yeah.
But
totally.
I'm so into it.
It's like, remember in like Smash Bros. Where like back in the day in like Melee, it's like, oh, to unlock Mewtwo you have to put in like either 750 hours or like 750 battles or something like that, and it's like, wow, that's a lot. This, by comparison, is insane. 750 hours sounds like a piece of cake by comparison to what you're now describing. Like, and even, and that...
Compared to over 1,000 days.
Yeah, like, it's just like, gaming sucks now. Like, the free-to-play thing has ruined everything in a way. There's been upsides, too. Like, you can get more accessibility, start playing earlier, decide if you like something, you don't spend $60 up front. Like, there's all that. But, like, yeah, maybe I'm just getting old. There was, the other night, some house party a block. Yeah, okay, but to give a sense of maybe I'm getting old. There was the other night a house party a block over from my apartment, and I happened to be walking by because my car is parked over there. I'm like, what is going on? Like, there's like a step and repeat, and like there's stage lighting in the backyard. I'm like, what is this? So I did some digging. It turns out there's like some rapper and singer and some other person that were doing an album, like a single release party, and I like looked up these people, like, who are they? And they have like 3 million followers on TikTok, like 2.5 million followers on TikTok. The rapper, a guy named like Champion 8 or something, has like 15 million listens on one song alone on Spotify per month. And I'm like, how have I never heard of any of these people, and why are they just in this random backyard? And I'm like, right, Gen Z, I'm old now, I'm millennial. So, I don't know, I'm having a midlife crisis this week, is I guess what I'm saying. Between free-to-play games and that party, I'm like, what is happening? I'm so disconnected now.
So, I hate TikTok. I document it well on my personal Twitter about how much I think TikTok is a useless platform that has tricked millennials or like anybody who's super into TikTok into like thinking that like it's the greatest thing ever. I mean, it's just worst fine. That's my opinion.
The thing it does so well to trick people is that algorithm is so strong. I don't know what their secret sauce is, but they know exactly what you want to see when you want to see it.
And God forbid you accidentally watch a video for too long and then your algorithm is just completely ruined.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Oh, my God.
It makes YouTube look like child's play in terms of its algorithm.
Yeah, exactly. Like, at least it takes like 10 K-pop like music videos for then for YouTube to then be like, all right, this guy wants K-pop. You look at one thing for all its 3 minutes, and that's it. That's all you're going to get. But I will say, I finally found an account on TikTok that I'm like, I could actually watch this. And it's, I think they're called farriers, or I'm not sure how you pronounce it. But it's the people that like clean the hooves off of horses.
What? And they just have videos of them doing that?
Yeah. It's just like TikTok videos. That's all. And they're like 2 minutes long. And I'm just like, entranced by these videos of these people just just cleaning the hooves off of horses. It's great.
I will say, like, the way that we're kind of like... Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Let me say, but now, that's all I get. Now that's all I get. I'm like, I like this, but this isn't just all that I want now. Jesus Christ. You can't win with this platform.
I will say the way we're acting about TikTok is probably very similar to what generation before us thought about, like, Vine and Twitter and Facebook. Because, like, you know, there's always talk like, oh, TikTok makes all these famous people now, like Addison Rae being a big example, or like, you know, the what's her name, D'Angelo or whatever, the dancer girl who now has her own Hulu show. Like, there's always people coming out of it. And I was thinking, like, I mean, Vine was the same deal. Like, Shawn Mendes spun out of Vine, Justin Bieber spun out of YouTube. Like, it's not any different. It's just we're now disconnected from it, and now there's like a more powerful algorithm, so it just feels different. But like that rapper guy, like I was reading up on him a little, because I'm like, why is he like a block from my house in a random backyard? And it's interesting because he only writes like basically mic drop style single verses, and then the ones that go viral and catch on, he then sort of workshops a song around it based on the popularity, and then throws that full song on Spotify and then gets the residuals off that. It's like there's this whole like economy that's come out of like the marriage of like streaming music and TikTok, and even just TikTok dictating like what songs get on the chart. You know, like Roddy Ricch, like he blew up because of TikTok, and his like, and even the lyrics of his song, just the opening beat was like all over TikTok, and then he like went on to perform at the Grammys, and now he's like a huge rapper. And yeah, it's just kind of interesting how it's really no different than what we went through. It's just the way that things have kind of shifted. This is the equivalent, but just feels so foreign because we're so removed from it. I don't know.
I hate TikTok with a passion. I can't win with that platform.
There's definitely concerns about like where that data is going.
Oh, I do not care about where my data is going. My data, I have been on the internet for long enough that everybody knows where I live.
Oh yeah, I mean yeah, I'm super easy.
I just do not care anymore. Like
yeah,
I should, but like I said, we've been on the internet long enough to that all these companies know where we live. They all know our interests, all that stuff. So at this point, it's just a lost fight, lost cause.
Pretty much, yeah.
What about you, Jason? What was your week like?
I mentioned I'm wearing a Bidoof shirt, right? I think that's my biggest gaming achievement is I'm wearing a Bidoof shirt. Like I haven't done much. I mean, I played the WarioWare demo. That was fun. I'll have impressions of that in a week on around Nintendo. But yeah, no, I haven't done any single great gaming achievement this week except put this shirt on today. So there we go. That's all I've got, really.
There we go.
Yeah. Damn, better slow down there, man.
I know. I'm
wild,
going
man.
buck wild over here. I know.
Yeah. Well, in that case, let's get on with the show.
30 minutes in.
30 minutes in. We like to wing it on this podcast.
I'm pretty sure Angel just shoehorned in a Hearthstone like category of discussion. Just never told us he was going to say it, but that was like a full segment. That's pretty good.
I mean, that's
I
fine
was
with
going to
me.
get in that depth. I was just going to say like, hey, I made it to Legend, but then I'm like, well, maybe people don't really know how big of a deal that is because it does.
Yeah, I think context always helps.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's continue the Angel train rolling. Angel, tell us about what you've been doing aside from Hearthstone legending.
Yeah, so besides that, this week, my brother got a hold of, through me, because I just happened to be at Best Buy, and they were there, the newest slew of, I guess, DC direct-to-movie movies. Direct-to-video movies? Direct-to-home release movies? Whatever.
Direct to not a theater.
Yeah.
You know, that phrase is basically dead because everything's on Netflix and HBO and Amazon day one.
Basically,
it's kind of meaningless now. Weird. Another weird thing that's changed with generations.
Yeah, essentially, like we're collectors here. He wanted to get them, and I picked them up for him. And they all come with the code as well, so we also have them available digitally if we choose to be lazy and not put the disc in. But yeah, so I picked up Batman: The Longest Halloween Part 1, Part 2, and Justice Society WW2. And the main reason I wanted to bring these up is because
WW2?
World War II.
World War II?
Yeah. I just didn't.
Wait, I don't think I've ever heard World War II. Even like
when it's
in my mind, if I see WW2, when I see WW2 in my mind, that automatically is World War II.
World War II, yeah.
I would say WW2 in my head.
I think that's what
Wait, so Angel, when you see the Roman numeral one, when it's WWII, do you think in your head WWII and basically sound like a monkey ball character, or do you actually think World War II?
I don't know if I've ever seen it with the Roman numerals, but I would probably still say
what?
2.
That's how it's stylized most of the time. Isn't it?
I don't know off the top of my head. I'm trying to think of how Call of Duty put
Yeah, that's something I look up to. Like when they
but
called it that
Yeah,
a
Call
year
of
or two
Duty
ago.
also put it. They put WW2 on the cover.
Where am I thinking WWII? Yeah, World War II style WWII. If you
Oh,
go, the
WW.
Wikipedia
Okay.
page for World War II is World War II.
I mean, for in general or for the game.
The concept of the Second World War.
We're talking
Generally.
about how was that lesson something that I would have seen.
You took history classes, I would hope.
I mean, half the time
You've been around long enough to have seen references to these not the greatest war. That was the first
I
one,
mean,
but two,
literally,
World War II.
the first thing I think of when I think history class is me playing Pokemon Diamond inside my backpack during history class.
And that's why our society has become what has become, because of Pitnon King.
Japan has won. But yeah. But anyway, Justice Society WW2. So the reason I really wanted to bring these up is because I don't know how many of you have seen these non-theater DC movies in the past. I know Jason might have seen one or two when he was hanging out
I've watched
with
a few with you. Yeah, I've seen a few with you.
And there has been a notable lack of quality control in like the last couple. Like some shots look great or fine, but they're either like usually, you know, for these kinds of movies you want the quality to be somewhere between theatrical and television, which, you know, is kind of getting smaller and smaller as time goes on, at least for like the animated side. Just, you know, technology gets easier to create better quality animation. And sometimes it's not just like the frame count. Sometimes it's just like the quality of the lines or even the CG. Like some CG shows are just starting to look a lot better and better. Although
even live action to that point, like the CG in live action shows is getting better.
Yeah, very good point. Like, you know, for shows like The Flash and stuff, like, yeah, there's some enemies that would have looked really silly. Like, you know, probably I didn't watch any of the older DC shows like Smallville and Arrow, but
Arrow's still on.
I don't know if. Well,
No, I think Arrow finished already.
Oh, right. Like last year.
I guess probably more specifically Smallville. Like, I don't know how often CG was used there, but definitely when I'm thinking of like CG in old shows, maybe like Goosebumps or something. Like, yeah, like things don't really age well.
Yeah, that was like 98 though.
Exactly. Yeah. And we've come a long way from Transformers Beast Wars, but what's it called? But yeah, like the quality was kind of dipping a little, and it was getting kind of like almost to the point where it was kind of concerning. But then, and you could definitely tell like this is, I don't know if they got like a new like art director or someone, but these three movies in particular, and the one we saw just before this, I think it was called like Superman, Man of Tomorrow. Like, even noticeable by their spine, which all have a new deco. I mean, you could tell at the top they're going for the whole collect all the Blu-rays and put them next to each other to spell out DC Comics or DC something. But
that would boil my blood.
Yeah, it kind of sucks because now like we already have like just like the last part of C, and the first part of it, but then we're definitely missing some part between the D and the C. And my brother's trying to figure out, like, God damn it, like, which movie was that? But
yeah, I would lose my mind.
Yeah. But at the very least, these two or these three, like, there has been, besides the art direction, like, they're definitely using more CG, and and the best thing is that you don't even really notice, like, for the most part, a lot of the characters right off the bat have really thick outlines. And everything just looks crisp and clean the entire time. Like, there never really isn't at any point where something feels cheap. Even, like, the scenes where people are just talking to each other. Like, everything just feels better. I don't know, like, the cinematography, even just, like, the quality of, like, just basic movements. But then the action scenes, like, the action scenes that appear in these, like, has also been noticeably, like, you definitely go, like, whoa, like, I wasn't expecting it to look like this good. Like, I mean, DC movies usually have good fight scenes, but I don't know, something about a simple fight of like Catwoman versus Poison Ivy ended up looking like a climax, even though it was like literally the beginning of the movie. And that was pretty impressive, and it held throughout Longest Halloween 1, 2, and Justice Society. Like, if anything, like the stories, they were good. Like, I enjoyed them. I enjoyed all three of them. Well, I'll just say two of them to make it easy. Longest Halloween and Justice Society. But I think the production values definitely helped elevate it. And that's really cool. But definitely the coolest part was, like I mentioned, the fact that all the character models, at least, we're pretty sure, and in some instances it's kind of obvious, but they're all like CG. And they're just extremely, like, cel shaded and look incredibly flat. Like, they finally figured out how to make, 2D characters out of 3D models, and I'm sure that is why the overall quality of the animation has improved a lot, because you don't have to redraw the same character over and over again. You can just move this character and just animate it like every third or fourth frame, essentially moving it the same rate you would if you were drawing it, except you don't have to. You're just changing the pose, which is essentially what Spider-Verse did. So it's kind of like that, except because the models don't look three-dimensional, you don't get that well, I like the effect, but you don't get that weird stop-motion-y look that Spider-Verse kind of had at times, or most of the time. Actually, all the time, depending on the character, because that was something else they did. But yeah, so I mean, if you're liking these DC movies and felt that the quality was dipping a little, definitely check out these newer ones. I mean, as far as story goes, Longest Halloween is, a Two-Face origin story. And I feel like I've seen another... Oh, we have The Dark Knight, which is another Two-Face origin story. But...
Excellent movie. That is all.
It's alright.
No. It's one of my favorites. How dare you?
I still don't think it's a good Batman movie. I think it's a great movie, but you could replace Batman with, like, I don't know, Tom Cruise from the Jack Reacher movies.
I mean, you can't. Like, is Jack Reacher going to go in and be like, where is she? Like, he doesn't talk like that.
He absolutely can. What are you talking about? It's not a Batman that necessarily has to ask, where is she?
But in that voice, yeah, I know. Yeah. It's more of like, I get what you're saying.
But yeah, like, this movie follows kind of like a younger Batman. Now you could tell you have to, I guess, the combat down, but he's still kind of figuring out the whole detective side of it. And in a way, Catwoman kind of steals the show from him. She is essentially way more competent and kind of saves his butt a few times. It almost feels like Catwoman is kind of the main character sometimes. And Batman is just kind of there. Not that necessarily really hurts the movie, but it was just kind of like Batman, I guess, has a long way to go. And they definitely didn't shy away from including a ton of villains, and they don't really, try to explain their origins or anything. They do kind of just expect you to either know who they are, but even if you don't know who they are, it doesn't really change much. You just have to know, oh, these are bad guys. They explain what they need to. Like, oh, why is Batman hallucinating? Because of Scarecrow or because of the fear toxin. It just makes you, see spooky stuff. And, and it pretty much centers around, like, it's a murder mystery, which I'm always a fan of. You're always trying to figure out who is the real killer. They present you with a bunch of potential suspects. And up until the end, you're always kind of left guessing who they're going to be. And Justice Society World War II was just a really fun Flash movie. Essentially, Flash runs so fast that he ends up in World War II. And shenanigans ensue. Sort of. I won't try.
That's a good byline for any World War II movie. Shenanigans ensue.
So yeah, because I mean, it's World War II, but with superheroes in a world where their involvement is meant to be secret, and they're just kind of working behind the scenes. But there's also a Flash in this timeline as well. The Joe Garrett, the original Flash, who has definitely been getting has been in the spotlight a lot recently, I feel. But I mean, to my knowledge, it sounds like Flash is more of a driving force of the overarching plots of the DC universe than even Batman and Superman are. Just because, he essentially has the ability to reset the universe when he wants to. And sometimes he did it accidentally. And I think that is actually what the basis of the next live-action Flash movie
is.
It is. I think they're going to do Flashpoint, which is, in a nutshell, Flash versus Professor Zoom. The anti-Flash. He's just yellow and red instead of red and yellow. And yeah, he goes back in time and kind of messes with it, whole butterfly effect. It's a whole alternate universe. But I don't know if I mean, it's kind of like Suicide Squad. Like, I watched it just more for the actors and for the fact that it's a DC Universe movie. Because, I mean, I'm definitely more of a fan of the animated ones. Can't really tell you exactly put my finger on it. Maybe it's just because I'm just a bigger fan of animation in general. Like, oh, well, I mean, I guess right off the bat, the suspension of disbelief. Like, when you're watching something animated, at least in my opinion, like, I am almost immediately already, I guess, that belief suspended. I am 100% immersed into the world because there's no kind of, nothing can break me away from the fact that, like, oh, this is a movie. Then, the fact that it's already animated. So, like, I just see these characters as they are. But when I'm watching, even Suicide Squad, or I don't know, any of the other or any of the slew of like Marvel movies, it's really hard for me sometimes to remind myself that is supposed to be Ant-Man, not Paul Rudd, or that is supposed to be Bloodsport, not Idris Elba. Like, I find myself so many times just seeing, like, oh, this is just a guy acting, pretending to be this guy, instead of it being Bloodsport. Like, I don't know, I have to hit like a little reset button like every 30 minutes when I watch almost any live action movie if I recognize the actors. For a movie like Shang-Chi, just based on the trailer, like, I don't know who any of these people are. And so even the trailer itself is like, oh, I could probably get more into it. But generally, but I don't know.
I was going to say, this explains a lot about you, because you always, when you're talking about actors, reference their other roles. So you always are looking at an actor based on their acting history, not what they are in the moment. So it actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, because
remember that episode of this very non-Nintendo, or I guess it's Quarantine Chronicles at the time, where we were trying to describe an actor, and we went through like 12 different roles they had, and you got half of them wrong, but like you couldn't just like name the actor and be like, oh, they were this and this thing. You're like, oh, I know this person because I know them as this and this other thing, and then this other thing and this other thing, and there's like this whole like daisy chain in your head of how you associate people versus just the character in the movie.
Yeah, because when it comes to animated films, like, even like, Tom Hanks, and like Tom Hanks, yeah, does kind of sound like Woody. Like, that is kind of his speaking voice, but he does a little bit more to it. But I didn't really know who Tom Hanks was when the first Toy Story came out. Like, when I saw that character, it's like, that is Woody. He is, quote unquote, like a living, breathing character. Like, there was no association to any actor, and that's kind of how I feel about almost every animated movie I ever watch, good or bad. Like, these characters are those characters. But
so the voices don't change anything for you?
Sometimes it only does when we get to theatrical, like certain theatrical, like adaptations. Like when it's an original story or some things like that. Like, I don't know, like even like a lot of the characters in, say, like Spider-Verse, some of them are well known. Like, Peter B. Parker was the dude from
Jake
Girl
Johnson.
Next Door, New Girl.
Next Door.
But I didn't know who that was, so like he was just Peter B. Parker to me. But I could think of. I'm trying to think of an example where, all right,
Nick Cage.
Nick Cage. Who was he in? Who was he in an animated film?
He was Spider-Man or in
See, like, yeah, there are certain exceptions where, like that one, I did kind of think of him as like Nick Cage is doing a part, but he has such a like smart part in that movie that it didn't really bother me. I just saw it more as like a cameo than the thing. Okay. But yeah, like there are a few exceptions. Like, I'm pretty sure it's going to be hard for me not to think of. Well, I don't know, maybe, but it's definitely easier for me to think of, like, Knuckles is going to be Idris Elba. I wonder how much of Idris Elba I'm going to keep thinking, like, oh, this is Idris Elba, or it's going to be Knuckles. I feel most of the time, even if I know who the actor is or they're really well known, I can still get immersed much easier. Oh yeah, it's definitely much easier for me to get immersed in an animated film versus the live action one. But yeah, if it's just them playing themselves, like, yeah, sometimes it's kind of hard. Like Sonic, I think that one was kind of tough just because, Roger Craig Smith, to me, like, that was what Sonic sounded like. And then when we got, I forgot his name,
Ben Schwartz.
Ben Schwartz.
Did you call him Bidoof?
No, I said the dude.
I said Bidoof. I was like, what?
The dude from Parks and Rec.
Yes, among many other things, but yes.
Yeah, like at first it was definitely we were just like readjusting. That's kind of like definitely I guess one of the unfortunate side effects of animated properties, especially when it's like a long running series, like where you have like just characters get new voice actors, and sometimes they don't sound like the original, and sometimes it just like comes off as weird, and you just have to deal with it obviously, but sometimes they just aren't as good as the first one. But sometimes it could work a ton in their favor, or they implement it into the story. Like one of my favorite examples is in the 2012 Nickelodeon Ninja Turtle series, American Pie dude, I don't know if I remember his name. He played the main dude from American Pie. I think it was the son.
Jason Biggs?
Maybe, but if he has curly short hair, I think that's
the
him.
guy that the guy that
the son of
does
the
the
dude
thing with the
from
pie in American Pie, right? That's who you're talking about?
Yeah, the Schitt's Creek son from.
Oh no, you mean Eugene Levy? You mean the dad from American Pie?
No. Eugene Levy's son in.
Okay,
American
Jason
Pie.
Biggs. Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
so
I swear I am not looking at IMDb. This is all off the top of my head.
So this Jason Biggs was the voice of Leonardo for the first couple seasons, but at some point he left the Turtles. I don't know why. I don't know if it was good or bad reasons, but he left it, and he was replaced with. Oh man, I'm forgetting his name too. But
Seth Green.
Seth
I remember
Green,
this.
yeah, with Robot Chicken.
Yeah.
And Seth Green didn't exactly sound like Jason Biggs, but it was kind of close. He had kind of like he was doing his young Jason Green kind of gruffy voice.
Seth
and
Green,
it worked
sure.
for Leo, but I love that. I guess I don't know. I guess they timed it, but essentially when the change happened, or as the change was happening, I guess it was included at the end. But Leonardo was essentially ambushed by Shredder and a bunch of enemies. This was like one of the season finales. So it was like a really big pivotal moment. Leonardo was almost killed. He actually got I guess at the end, I guess what happened, I guess Leonardo, I think, actually got slashed in the throat at the end, and then he was kind of silent for an episode or two, and then when they're woods, and then when his voice finally healed, it was now Seth Green's voice, and then the other characters were like, "Whoa, you sound a little different," and then oh yeah, or whatever, or just him trying to recover and just still being a little traumatized, but stuff like that. It's it keeps the immersion. It's wow, it works. It doesn't drop a beat. It's not as jarring when I don't know, main character like Gumball goes through 3 different voices because it's supposed to be a little kid, but kids can't sound like themselves for more than a couple years if they're around their 10s or 11s or 12s, and if a show goes long enough, you have to go through a couple because of puberty, unless you also age up the character, but that's not going to happen for a lot of these perpetually youngins. But yeah, so that's my thoughts on those DC universes, and I think the animation in general.
To your point, I think the only time that bothers me when an actor switches is in a live action where they full on, and they don't do this as much anymore because it becomes too obvious, but they full on swap out the actor. So it's the same character in a sitcom or whatever, but the person is physically different. That's the only time this sort of thing bothers me. Voices I can take, but
Fresh Prince of Bel-Air?
Yeah, that's probably the most egregious example, but there's been others.
Yeah, but I mean, sometimes they kind of have to, and they have to work with.
That's the most egregious one for me.
But I know, didn't they have?
It's the one that comes to mind.
It, and they threw him out of the house with "Oh, Mrs. Banks, you look different," and then they just threw him out or something.
Yeah.
But,
to your point about Tom Hanks and Woody, have I ever told the story on the podcast of my Tom Hanks Woody voice experience? It's not that exciting of a story. It's just really cool in the moment.
Oh, then we might as well skip it then. It's not that exciting.
Wow. Okay. Next topic.
Never presses it, but it's not that exciting.
Well, I don't want to get people's hopes up. That's something cool. But basically, I was at a restaurant in Beverly Hills, and it was a birthday dinner for me, but it was also Mother's Day weekend, and Tom Hanks and his family were there for Mother's Day, presumably. Which means, yes, his son Chet, the dumb one that's always saying stupid things on Instagram, he was also there. But anyway, Tom Hanks was chasing his grandson around the restaurant while they were either waiting to be seated or something, and he was doing it in the Woody voice. So I, in real time, was hearing him switch between Tom Hanks and Woody and Tom Hanks. And it was actually kind of cool. You're right, it is a small difference, but it's there. And it's kind of just cool to, see Woody in the flesh in a way, running around. But
yeah, you hear it without looking at him, and I'm sure you could imagine Woody being there. It's kind of magical.
Pretty much.
This is why I love animation
cool.
so much.
Yeah.
But yeah. I mean, like when
if
I
we're doing
saw...
random celebrity stories, Seth Green once took a selfie with me and sent it to his friend, and I don't know why to this day. It was at Comic-Con. It was at a signing. And he's like, let's take a selfie. And he literally texted it. I was like, I'm sending it to my friend. I'm like, why me? Okay. So.
That two selfies you took with
Maybe
Didn't
it was
we
for,
also
like, a
take
website
one
thing
for
or
ice
something.
cream or something?
Yeah, but we took it on our phones. He took the selfie on his phone and sent it to his friend at the signing, which is strange. I think he was like trying to tell his friend, I can't talk right now. And his friend's like, oh, yeah, sure. And he's like, no, really, look. And he like took a picture of me. He was like, see, I'm at a signing.
And the friend's like, oh, he's hanging out with Jason. Damn. He's right. He can't talk.
Exactly. Because Jason will be talking so nonstop, he won't get a chance to talk. Yeah. But yeah, so I'm somewhere in Seth Green's camera roll, is my point. To this day, probably. Maybe.
All right. Next on the docket. So I just learned that docket isn't a real word, but you've absolutely heard that, right?
Yeah. I think it's like a colloquial thing. Yeah.
It might be
But I don't-
a
but yeah,
European
apparently it's not a
thing, because I
word.
think I've heard it more with people with an accent.
Docket?
Like docket?
Oh,
Like,
it's
let's see what's next on the docket. Oh, no. Like, they still say docket, but... Yeah. Wait, it's not a real word? I mean, it has to exist.
No,
Pretty
it's
sure
not
it's
a
a
real
word.
word. So, I mean...
Jason? Come on. You
on
I'm working
Apple's
on it.
dictionary,
I'm working on it.
Apple's dictionary, docket is not a word.
Well, I mean, Apple
Like
doesn't
DOCKET?
Wait, hold
wouldn't know
on.
how to
Maybe it's because
spell
I
it.
was...
I mean,
It's docket. Yeah, no, it's a word. On a list of legal cases to be heard by the court, the judge has to put some of the cases on the docket, is an example.
I've been misspelling docket. I'm not going to tell you guys how I've been spelling it because now I'm incredibly embarrassed.
I'm going to assume it was DOC. No, I'm going to assume it was
No.
DOCC or something. Docket.
No, I'm not going to
Please tell me it was
explain how
not
I was-
dogget, like DAWG.
No. I will say I got the DOCK right.
Okay.
It's everything after that's... Well, not
Everything.
necessarily that's
Only
everything
2
wrong.
letters.
Well,
right.
let's just say
All right.
I added a couple of extra letters. Anyways,
like an
next on the
ETTE,
docket.
I see.
Shut up. Ted Lasso, Jason, talk to us about it.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. So I don't think I'm the only one that's watched it, right? Angel, you've seen it too, haven't you?
Yeah, I saw it good while
When after it
ago.
was out. Yeah. So
yeah,
I was a
like
little
not
late.
long after. You know, it was just getting a lot of buzz, and I'm like, all right, I like the dude from The Office, and then I realized it wasn't him.
Nope, that's not him.
Yeah, that's
Jason
Ed
Sudeikis.
Helms.
You're thinking
Ed Helms.
of Ed
Helms.
but it's Jason Sudeikis, who you may know, if not from SNL, then from We the Millers, We're the Millers, or whatever
I knew
that
from Horrible
family
Bosses.
movie was. And Horrible Bosses 1 and 2, yes. But that's confusing, because isn't Ed Helms also in one of the Horrible Bosses?
No.
I thought he had a side role in the second one or something. Maybe I'm mixed up. Anyway, Ted
That was Chris
Lasso.
Pine.
Well, I definitely didn't mix up Ed Helms and Chris Pine, but you're right, Chris Pine is in it. They're very different people. Anyway, Ted Lasso. Yeah, so I was a little late to the party. But I am curious to hear what you think too, Angel. But as the buzz for season 2 was ramping up, and as the Emmy nominations were coming out, and it was like getting them across the board, I was like, all right, maybe I should take the plunge on this thing. Because, originally I knew the premise was it's an American coach that goes to coach a football team in Europe, in England. He's a football coach in America, but a football coach over there, so, soccer. And he doesn't know what he's doing, and he's a super optimistic guy, and it's from the guy that created Scrubs. That's all I knew. There are enough check boxes there, like Bill Lawrence of Scrubs and Jason Sudeikis and Zach Braff actually directed an episode. So it's like, oh, that's kind of cool. So there's like enough little pieces there. I'm like, one day I'll watch it, but it wasn't until the Emmys really where I'm like, okay, maybe I should watch this. Ended up watching the entire first season in one night, so like 5 straight hours. And yeah, I was really pleasantly surprised about it. I knew it'd be good, but I think what was interesting is I didn't realize how, not just a sitcom it was. Like, obviously, there's jokes in Sudeikis' character. Ted Lasso is like this guy is perpetually optimistic, and he has all these weird analogies he always makes and things. But I would say in terms of like a comedy, it's not like how many laughs per minute of like a TV sitcom. It's more of like a dramedy almost. And what really hooked me, I think, was at the end of the first episode, he's on this call with his wife, and they do it really well where they don't actually, you don't hear the call, you just hear his end of it. And it's just him, kind of like one-word answers, two-word answers, and you realize, oh, this perpetually optimistic guy who always has the best outlook on life, his personal life is actually kind of struggling and he's going through some stuff. And it was just kind of interesting to see the show that set him up as like, hey, look at this weird American who's so chipper having like kind of this actual issue. That's like, okay, let's see where this goes. And it ends up being like a really good show where it's him kind of balancing being the best man he can be with, and this sort of optimism he has with the reality of what his life currently is in a given moment, and the fact that, he is a guy that's never coached a soccer team and the town hates him and he slowly kind of wins him over the season and things like that. And it was just kind of a pleasant surprise because I really thought it was just going to be kind of like Scrubs where, yeah, there's an overarching plot, but it's really just, laughs per minute per episode, kind of isolated, that sort of thing. But no, it's like the reason I was able to binge it all in one go is it kind of is like a split up movie. It is very cohesive and from episode to episode. It's very well shot as well, kind of like a movie. And yeah, I was just very pleasantly surprised. Also, biscuits. Biscuits are a thing in the show. For some reason, he makes the best biscuits. No, it's kind of a running joke. And then, sure enough, here in LA, just this past weekend. Actually, if you're listening to this the day it goes live on the 22nd, and you're in LA, you have time to swerve your car to one of 4 locations for a coffee shop called Go Get 'em Tiger, because through the end of the 22nd, they are giving out the biscuits from the show for free with any purchase. They got the recipe from the set. It's all like exact, it's the actual recipe, and they are very good. They're British biscuits, so they're crunchy. They're kind of like cookies, but they're very good.
Oh, that's disappointing.
So, yeah, they're not like soft biscuits. I've had a lot of biscuits this week somehow, actually. It's like almost every other day I had a biscuit from a different place. And yeah, these are definitely the most British of the biscuit, but they are extremely good and buttery. But yeah, I mean, I don't know, Angel, how did you feel about the show when, like, what was your kind of takeaway when you watched it? Was it kind of similar that, it's actually there's a little more to it?
No, yeah, I mean, even though, like, I started a long time ago, but I didn't actually finish it until, like, yesterday. So, like, I finished, like, the last episode. It was kind of, like, spread out.
Where are you on all of it or season 1 only?
No, just season 1.
Okay, yeah, I'm waiting for season 2 to come out.
I think I'm going to wait for it to be finished. Our impression just from my sister season 2 is that, like, she's not enjoying it as much because, like, actually, it's kind of funny that you mentioned it feels like a movie because that's definitely very true. It just feels like you're just taking a break in between each episode. And I also love that they're 30 minutes each. I swear, like, as soon as I saw that, I'm like, when I first saw it, I'm like, oh, I'm actually going to give the show a try. If it was 45 minutes each episode, it probably would have taken me a lot longer to watch it. I don't know. I think maybe you could blame maybe just animated shows being 11 minutes to 24 minutes and just like me kind of being happy with that length. But yeah, I really appreciated the short burst, which, makes it easier to binge in my opinion.
Totally.
But yeah, my sister, her early impression so far has just been, it's like, oh, everything feels kind of a little segmented and it kind of feels like we're going into fillers. And I'm like, oh, it's kind of interesting.
I think I do wonder, like, if they originally planned to have more of this season. Because, I mean, the show is based on, if I'm not mistaken, a character from a series of SportsCenter ads. Like, Ted Lasso is this kind of one-note silly character that ESPN did with Sudeikis, like, either SportsCenter or during commenting of, like, college football or something. And then they turned it into a show, which right away you're like, I mean, Geico tried turning their cavemen into a show on ABC and that tanked hard. But I do wonder if, when they made the show, like, all right, let's just tell one story and we'll get where we can. And then it took off so much that they're like, oh, I guess we're telling another story. It's very much, I wonder if it's very much like Stranger Things, where originally it was supposed to be an anthology series, but season 1 did so well that now here we are with season 4 next year, same cast of characters still. So I am curious when season 2's done being released and I watch it once, if it's going to be cohesive in the end or if it really is going to feel like, oh, they were scrapping together a new plot.
I also did appreciate I did like the fact that it was more of a dramedy than just like a regular sitcom. I don't know who I heard it from like a long time ago, but I think people were saying like it was like from the same wheelhouse as like Parks and Rec and those kind of things. And I don't know if I was ready to necessarily jump into a show like that, but it takes its time. It's not slow though. It feels like a lot happens in each episode. It's like it feels like you're making a lot of progress, and the cast is also pretty great. Like you have a lot of very jarring personalities, like like the something Tart, the soccer player.
Oh, Jeremy Tart. Yeah,
Jeremy
kind of
Tart.
Pompous, like, he thinks he's the coolest because he's the best player and he...
Like, literally reminds me of Jason, which is funny.
What?
And then you have Roy, who's kind of like on the opposite end. He's like, very aggressive, but like I guess like aggressively, I don't know, I guess feels true to his moral and like trying to get people to do the right thing, even if like
he was the it guy. He just kind of grew out of it in the sense of he was the it guy, when he was younger. Now he's kind of like the old standby, like the good, He passed his prime, but he kind of like has the insight that comes with it. Yeah.
And then, and even like Ted Lasso's like really close friend coach, I also really like his character. He kind of reminds me of like, he gives me like Ron Swanson vibes, but he's not like a this is my way kind of dude. He's like that guy that I feel like you think is going to be like a tough, intimidating person, but he's like, if you get to know him, like, oh, he's a very chill, like sweet dude that, I don't know, kind of wacky in his own way, but he definitely, he can look very stern and serious when he needs to be. And yeah, I remember like in the first episode thinking like, oh, I don't know if I'm gonna like necessarily like a lot of these characters, like the Keely or the head woman.
Right, Keely being, for those at home, the girlfriend, at least when you start the series, the girlfriend of Jeremy Tart, and she's kind of this model and social media influencer, and they make her out to initially like she's gonna be kind of this vapid, like
she definitely
model
feels like
social
the
media
most like
influencer.
Yeah, like her.
She has the most growth, probably.
Yeah, but like her initially, like she felt like she felt like she was kind of ripped straight out of a sitcom. But
yeah.
But then like the personalities end up kind of working for the show. Like I was kind of worried at first, like when some of these personalities came out, that it was gonna be like, like this. The tone of the show feels a little more serious than some of these characters. But then it just kind of worked. Like even like Nathan, I thought was a great character. Even Ted Lasso himself, like his overly positive attitude was never grating. Like, I mean, I like really positive characters. Like, I kind of think of him as, like, for those of you that watch anime, like a human Tanjiro, like the main character from Demon Slayer. Like, no matter what you tell him, he just looks at, like, the nice side of things, even if people are literally calling him, like, all these slurs and obscenity and whatever. But, yeah.
And I think that's kind of the show's strength is... Like, there's always, like in some level you could argue SpongeBob is sort of similar inside SpongeBob. Like, his whole world is, like, weird and bizarre, and people, like, are can be jerks to him and take advantage of him, but he's still, like, very positive.
Yeah.
Like, Ted Lasso is kind of like SpongeBob in, like, a more, like, traditional setting and a little more grounded. But, and it just works. It works surprisingly well. You do start to notice that they lean on a lot of like kind of tropey things with Ted, like in the later on in the series you start to read, he's gonna make an analogy here, here comes a weird analogy again, like it becomes a little like he has some like go-to moves, but it just works. Yeah, the whole show, I feel like it's fitting that Apple ended up with it, because it feels like such like an Apple like obviously they just bid it on this show and got it, but like it feels so Apple, because you have this guy whose entire outlook on life is just trying to make everyone around him's life better, which is Apple's kind of like corporate motto, sort of, like they want to improve everyone's lives, and this guy's trying to do that. Like even if he's even if he himself is in a bad situation, he seems more interested in helping those around him lift each other up than lift himself up, So there's that, which just kind of felt like, he's like, it's like if Apple had a human, it would be Ted Lasso. And then even just the way it's shot, like we were talking about, it looks like a movie, but like this thing is such, even though they're just on a soccer pitch, this thing is such a showcase for like the shots are in like 4K and HDR, and they all look really crisp and vibrant and nice, and you're just walking around the office or like out on the field or something with the characters, but like it has that kind of Apple-y, like, we're gonna make this look so fancy and use the fanciest technology to do it, even though it's just kind of a basic setting. And just like that pairing of like the perpetual like try and make like better with so it just felt very like if Apple could make a TV show using the like ethos of their products, this feels like what it would be, which is kind of fine that they ended up with it, because I think this was already in development before they took it, so it just kind of lined up versus them like shaping it, you know what I mean? But it is kind of funny that it worked out that way.
Who's the creative team behind this?
So the guy from Scrubs, Bill Lawrence, is the creator.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, and Zach Braff actually directed the second episode, and is now Emmy nominated for that. There's actually a really cool shot, and this is what I mean, and I think probably Angel was getting at too, about how it's sort of like a movie, is there's this great shot that you wouldn't see in a normal multicam sitcom or anything, where I think it's the second episode, maybe one of the ones I think Zach Braff directed, and anyway, the head, without spoiling anything too much, the owner of the team is in the tabloids for some reasons, and she goes in with Ted for their first press conference with the press, and the press sort of pivot to start asking her about the tabloid story. And they do this thing where, like, they have all the questions coming at her, and they're kind of like fading out the sound, and they're shooting it from the back of her head. So you just see the flash bulbs of the cameras going off, and then they sort of show, like, a bit of her, like, lip quiver, kind of from, like, a 2/3 angle maybe, with the flashes going off, and then she just takes a second, closes her eyes, breathes, and then just carries on like it's no big deal. But just like that sequence of shots is not something you'd see in a sitcom on TV. Like, that's like a movie. And it's kind of cool that, you know, a show like Ted Lasso, which is 30-minute episodes, a dramedy, but still like kind of pitched as a, you know, standard comedy, does like that sort of stuff. And there's other examples of that throughout the show where it's just kind of like, oh wow, they actually like put some like thought into how they're shooting this, and it's going a little beyond just a standard sitcom, which is cool. So yeah, but yeah, it's Bill Lawrence and company. Yeah,
I don't think I'll ever honestly watch this. Maybe because I need some not conflict in my life, but I have heard that this show is almost a little too wholesome.
It can be, which again is kind of weirdly fitting for Apple because they too try and be too wholesome sometimes. But yeah, it definitely it definitely is like a very like uplifting, positive, like. Literally, they have a sign in the locker room that says "Believe," and that feels like the model of the show is just like, if you believe in yourself, like, you guys can do it. Like, it's okay. Like, we can get through this. Which again is such like perfect pairing with Apple because their whole thing is like, you can do anything. Like, our products can help you achieve your own goals, and it's just like, okay, like it you know, you don't hear like Android phones being like, hey, if you just believe in yourself and have this cool phone, like things will happen. But like that's Apple, so it's fitting they have the show. But
it's funny how
yeah, no, go ahead.
I was gonna say it is funny how like, you know, when you watch like a Sony movie, it's almost like more blaring or like, oh, they obviously have a Sony phone. Like, I don't know, like phones that stand out more when it's like, you know, from another company, but like, you know, because so many people just have Apple phones. Like I forget that like, oh, this is an Apple show. That's why he's using a MacBook or whatever. But like, I don't give it a second thought when compared to.
Oh, I totally did.
When comparing to, like, I don't know, when I was watching even like Spider-Verse and like the headphones were Sony headphones, like it just felt like product placement. But I don't know, I guess it's because, at least to me, like, you know, iPhones are so common ground. I just didn't.
I think what stood out to me wasn't that people were using it. Because, yeah, that's the other side of this being an Apple production. Is there's Apple stuff everywhere. And it's not just like the ethos of Apple in the show. It's like Apple is in the show. And yeah, no, there's definitely a lot of phones. I think you're right that because iPhones are kind of ubiquitous, relatively speaking, and so many shows use them as like a cultural thing. Like, hey, we have like our characters using iPhones, like Blue Bubbles all the way, you know. But yeah, no, I did notice that they would do some shots, and this is probably where Apple intervened a little. Like, they do shots where characters like carrying their phone, but they be carrying it in just the right way, where like they show off like how many cameras it has on the back and what color they have, and no one's using cases and, you know, stuff like. Except Ted Lasso, I think he has like a sturdy case because he has to be out on the field. But for the most part, all the execs like are walking around with like normal.
Jasons.
Yeah, exactly. Which, you know, caseless life is the best life. But yeah, I did definitely notice the phones. And what I actually noticed is, so I did watch the first episode of season 2 before deciding to wait for all of them. And sure enough, every single character upgraded their phone to the latest iPhone. Like, you notice in season 1, like, oh, one of the characters has like an iPhone like XR, which is, you know, now outdated. Or something like that. But in this one, it's like, oh, they're all rocking 11s and 12s. Of course they are. Oh, there's 3 cameras on the back of that one. Oh, he has a 12 Pro. Ah, okay. Like, it's very, yeah, they don't try and hide it. But it's not too in your face in part, I think, because like you said, it's pretty ubiquitous for Apple product placement to exist in shows.
Did you guys ever read that story where Rian Johnson revealed that you could technically tell who the killer
Yep.
Knives Out was right from the beginning if you paid close enough attention?
Because of they weren't using an iPhone, right?
Yeah, because Apple will not let their villains, or will not let villains of the movies have iPhones. So I think, spoiler alert for Knives Out, skip about 20 seconds ahead, but Chris Evans is the only one in that movie that doesn't use an iPhone.
Yeah, it's Apple's very.
So
I mean,
he's the villain.
Wait, so why not mix it up and have some good guys use an iPhone then, or with it like Apple was like, no, you have to make it very clear that they're the villain because they're not using an iPhone.
I don't think
it's something.
I think it's more the cultural thing. Like iPhones, I'm gonna be honest, and I'm sorry to Android users out there that are listening. iPhones have a cultural presence that Android doesn't. It's the same as iPods. Like when if you watch a show from 2004 or 6, like everyone has the white earbuds. Everyone has that white cord going through their shirt collar down to their pocket or whatever. Like it's ubiquitous. It's just a thing. It's a trendy thing. It's the same way MacBooks are the computer of choice unless Microsoft's paying them to use the Surface or whatever. It's just there is this cultural cachet that comes with having iPhones. And I think I don't want to say it says something about the character if they don't have one, because it doesn't, but there is definitely like shows prefer Apple, at least currently, because it's the company. It's the same as like, right, if you look at like shows that have different gaming systems in them, for a while when the Wii was big, there were Wiis everywhere. Like you'd see the Wii remote reference like in someone's living room just on the table. And then like after the Wii was dead, it was a lot of PlayStation controllers. And now you're starting to see like Switch. Like I mentioned, I was watching White Lotus. One of the main characters has a Switch, and it's very prominent throughout like 3 episodes in a row. And I know that like Mayor of Easttown, which is another HBO show, also has a Switch very prominently shown. And you see it like Brooklyn Nine-Nine makes multiple jokes about the Switch. In fact, the premiere was last week. They made 3 Nintendo jokes in 2 episodes in the same hour of episodes. Like it's, they kind of just follow what the cultural trends are. So if the iPhone's the it phone, the movies will do it as much as they can. If the Switch is the it console, you see it pop up in shows as much as possible, like that sort of thing. So yeah, that's probably why they decide, you know what, we need this family to have iPhones because like that's what families have, unless they can't legally because they can't be villains or whatever. That's my guess anyway.
Yeah, well, that's Ted Lasso.
Yeah, and Apple.
Moving on to something incredibly not wholesome. The final rebuild of Evangelion. This is where weebs come in, and if you're not a weeb, you can get out. The final rebuild of Evangelion movie is finally out on, here in America. It's, I forget what they call it in English. I think it's called, excuse me, I had to mute myself for a second there. I've been coughing a lot today. The final movie is called Evangelion 3.0 plus 1.0 Thrice Upon a Time.
Is it
Angel?
Did Square Enix write that title?
Yeah, that's why I put it in the notes. Neon Genesis 358/2 Birth by Sleep Days.
What you originally had was even more confusing because originally you wrote Sega Genesis.
That's what I was wrote. Like Sega Genesis Emancipation, but I spelled Emancipation wrong. Just because Neon Genesis.
Was that supposed to be? Oh,
yeah, because it's Neon Genesis Evangelion.
That made more sense now.
Yeah, I was super confused. I was like, wait, Sega has an anime? But okay, anyway, continue.
Jason, as somebody who doesn't watch anime, do you know what Neon Genesis Evangelion is?
I don't hate anime, I just don't consume it. I know of it. I couldn't tell you anything about it except I know the name, and I feel like a lot of the outfits in it are like white and black, slightly future tech looking, if I remember correctly. Is that right?
You're not. You get the right idea. It's how would you explain it, Angel? Because I feel like if we call it a mech show, it does a disservice to the show.
Yeah, kind of like how you can technically call Attack on Titan a mech show, but anyway, how would I
call it a mech show? I guess maybe, but like,
because it basically is. If you know what mech shows kind of play out,
I guess
they're just
no actual mechs.
They're fleshy mechs. It serves the same purpose.
Oh,
okay. Wait, what do you?
To a degree, yeah.
Okay, fine.
Yeah, they have
fleshy mechs. I think we have our episode title, boys. Fleshy mechs.
Yeah, but how would you? It's pretty much about, I guess, humans fighting the angel threat with their own weapons, and the father wants to recruit his 13-year-old son to pilot one of these weapons to fight the alien, the angel menace. But he's a 13-year-old kid. That's not going to be the most wholesome experience for a young lad. And that's kind of where the conflict kind of starts with, revealing and more, layers coming undone. There's a whole, I guess, like theme about relationships and how they can be both liberating and, I guess, damaging to a person, and why like some people are just like afraid of forming new ones. but ultimately, you want to live your best life. Might have gone a little further in, but in a nutshell, yeah. Humans versus angels.
Yeah, it absolutely starts. It absolutely starts as a mech show, and then halfway through production, the creator suffered like a mental breakdown, and then the latter half of the original run, Neon Genesis Evangelion, became sort of like a character study with some mechs thrown in there. And so, in the mid 2000s, he decided to essentially, I guess we'll just use the word rebuild, since that's what that new series is called, rebuild the series as sort of like a reimagining remake of the original series. The first movie, I believe, came out in 2008 or 2007, one of those years. And it was almost like a direct adaptation of the first, I believe, like 6 episodes. But then with the second movie, it like very, very, it diverges from that original story like crazy. I was like in the middle of seeing the second movie, because all these movies are on Amazon now, in Japanese and dubbed, and in a bunch of different other languages too. But the original series, you could not legally see it in a lot of places until Netflix picked up the rights. I believe it was like 2 years ago.
Yeah, it's pretty
Do you remember when
recent.
it was back on Netflix?
I think it was 2018. Yeah.
And what Netflix did is they couldn't acquire the rights of the original dubbing that happened back in the early 2000s. So they just redubbed with a translator that worked with the actual company back in the day. So the original dubbing studio, they just did their own translation. Netflix used a direct script from I believe the company's called Gainax, which Gainax is the company behind what's that other mech show that they're known for? The show that I love so much.
The one about the spear to heaven, the drill.
Gurren Lagann.
Yeah, Gurren Lagann.
Gurren Lagann. Love Gurren Lagann. Yeah, so Gainax gave Netflix like a direct translation, or their translation of the show for Netflix to redub. And so they used different voice actors and stuff like that. And they also redubbed the 2 movies that were released after the show. All right, Jason, you're going to get a breakdown of Neon Genesis Evangelion right now, right?
I am ready.
All right. So, like I said, the show originally starts off as a mech show, right? Like a very serious mech show. Not like, well, I guess Gundam, which I never talked about, but Gundam, the original Gundam is also a very serious mech show. You think it's just about like giant robots fighting? No, it's about war. And similarly in Evangelion, it's about like these angels, which are, I guess, are like aliens or like religious aliens that are coming down.
It's as if like they took the descriptions of angels in the Bible and like made them almost one-to-one comparisons, because they're not like your typical winged humans. They're like, I don't know, like Elseworld creepy giant monsters with sometimes multiple eyes or one eye or tentacles, or sometimes just simplistic shapes. Like
wait, is that how angels are described in the Bible, as multi-eyed weird creatures?
They're just described as like these big, things that are like beyond comprehension, essentially. So it's very up to interpretation. But essentially not.
So they went to Pan's Labyrinth, Guillermo del Toro route with these. It sounds like
essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And the angels also use names of angels from the Bible, which I believe they use a Judeo-Christian.
Yeah, like there's a Gabriel
Bible.
And I forgot which other ones there are.
Adam, Lilith, just names like that.
Yeah.
And so that's how the show started. But like I said, the creator suffered a mental breakdown halfway through production, because he was also dealing with like a lot of depression. So the second half becomes like this almost character study. And then the last 2 episodes, I think it's 23 or 24 or 25 and 26, are like there's no mech fighting. There's no like real conclusion. It's all about the inner turmoil that these characters like have gone through. And so it was very controversial. Well, Angel, you've seen the original series, correct?
Yeah, that's all I've seen. Just the original 20-something episodes and the 2 movies.
Okay, so what did you think of those last 2 episodes? Because our friend of ours, Kevin Montenegro, he finally decided to watch Evangelion, and I remember when he finally got to those last 2 episodes, he asked me, "What the hell was that?"
It was definitely different, but I still got like a sense of satisfaction from it. Like if it ended like literally right there just like that, um, I think I would have still been happy because like ultimately, even if like Shinji doesn't, you know, we don't know if his life did it turn out well or not, but
Shinji being the main character.
he did finally get like he did achieve like that final like bit of mental growth where he finally learns to accept himself and try to move forward with it, which is kind of like the like you were saying, like is what the whole character study was about at the end. It became much more about the drama between him and his dad, and him and just like forming a relationship with other people in general. And I felt like that had like it had a conclusion, and kind of like I guess Asuka and I forgot the other character's name, Blue Girl.
Ray.
Yeah, Ray. Oh, that's right. Of course, it's Ray. And her creepy smile from that one episode. Um, yeah, like I kind of wish like we knew, I guess, had more development with them. But as far as like Shinji goes, it's like, all right, I was kind of satisfied with his arc because there was an arc. It wasn't bombastic in the action side how like the first couple episodes were, because it does kind of feel like, whoa. I mean, if we're getting some crazy scenes like this halfway through, I wonder how it's going to end. But then it ends nothing like that. I could see a lot. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I could definitely see why people were really upset with it. But I already, by the time I saw it in 2018, so I already knew. I knew about the whole, like, oh, they're running out of budget. Some scenes at the end looked like they were literally drawn with Sharpie and like highlighter crayons and stuff like that. But it doesn't end up coming off as cheap. It almost comes out like an extremely experimental, like art house, like abstract movie, and it was just so different that it was still like I still found it interesting. But now we have the rebuild, which may be what people were more looking for. But
well, not necessarily the rebuild, but specifically the 2 movies.
Oh yeah, the movie. Yeah, isn't that supposed to like directly answer that? It's like the first movie is literally like a recap of the series, which I would not recommend watching it if you had not seen the series. Like, don't treat it as a substitute because it jumps all over the place. It was definitely nice as a recap. It's like, okay, I remember this now, because it was definitely a while when I finished the show and I watched Death Squared or whatever it's called.
Yeah, Neon Genesis Evangelion Death Squared. Or no, it's called True Death Squared.
Oh, there you go.
These names.
Can't forget the True. Yeah, and after watching it, like I felt like, all right, I think I remember just about all the main beats and everything that it showed. And then I watched the movie, and it was like, oh man, this was kind of like the animated climax of Comet that I was expecting. Like, Jesus, like some of the scenes in that movie, and the whole like
Fata parade. Are you talking about End of Evangelion?
Yeah, the End of Evangelion.
Okay, so
and that
End of Evangelion was essentially the what?
The Fantascene. Orange Fanta?
The Fantascene.
Orange Fanta?
Wait, like Wanna Fanta? Like,
don't you want Orange Fanta everywhere?
Fanta? Yeah, now I remember. Yeah, so End of Evangelion was essentially made to... It's weird because I feel like they have said that episodes 25 and 26 of the original release are canon, but I think they've also said that End of Evangelion isn't... Not that it's necessarily canon, but it's complementary. But that it isn't not canon. Did I just confuse you guys?
Yeah.
Because I think I confused myself. I stunned myself in confusion there.
It isn't not canon, but it's also...
It's
not canon. It isn't not canon, but that episodes 25 and 26 are canon.
Wait, so they carved out a couple episodes that these are no longer canon, but everything around it is?
No. The original 2 episodes are canon.
Okay.
But this other set of this movie, which are essentially supposed to be episodes 25 and 26.
I see what you're saying.
They're not saying that those aren't canon.
I thought I saw what you're saying, but I think I now no longer see what you said.
Crap. Well, anyways, and when did you see End of Evangelion, Angel?
Maybe last month.
Okay, yeah. So I finally got around to seeing it because I remember our friend Matthew. He was the one that introduced me to Evangelion. How long ago was it? We were probably in high school. I was probably like in 9th grade when I originally saw the show. And that was before End of Evangelion ever came out here in the States. So then this was the first time that I actually saw it. I saw the first Rebuild movie before I saw End of Evangelion. Like that was the disparity between the releases, the time disparity between releases that I saw the movie. And well, now I guess I gotta ask you, do you prefer End of Evangelion over 25 and 26? Because they're radically different, where End of Evangelion is like exactly what you said, where like that's, I'm sure, what everybody was expecting back in the day, with like a lot of action, like actual animation.
I feel like I can't really prefer one over the other because, like I said, like the conclusion, or I guess like the wrap up with, I guess, Shinji's psyche that we got in 25 and 26. I feel like I didn't get that in End of Evangelion. That was more of like let's tie up the loose ends, because like, yeah, like a lot of things were left up in the air. But
you don't think so?
In 25 and 26?
No, in End of Evangelion.
Oh no. That's what, like in End of Evangelion, like they pretty much like wrap up everything, or like for the most part, like the other characters, like you see what happens to them, because you know things just kind of abruptly just end in what seems like a high school stage,
like a battle in like oh yeah. It was like a recital.
Yeah. So you know, like, so in 25 and 26, you kind of leave like a ton of like characters hanging. There's like all these loose threads that we just never really get resolved, because it just becomes about Shiji's mental dilemma. But I don't know, I feel like we didn't get that as much, at least like to the depth that we got in 25 and 26, because that's literally all it was. I don't know. I don't know. I can't really. I feel they're both important, but I mean, yeah, I guess as a Shinji arc, I think I prefer 25 and 26. But I mean, I guess as it's like just continuing where the story left off, I almost kind of feel like in my head, like, oh, they just kind of took place simultaneously. Because I mean, this is all something that Shinji's going through. It's like a mental, I guess, therapy. So it could have happened at any point in any of these episodes. Could have just been him in his room, just reflecting on life or something. I don't know. It doesn't really.
Now,
feel
what would you recommend to Angel?
To Angel?
You mean to me?
To Angel, to Jason.
Angel, what would you tell yourself?
Oh yeah,
what would the
because that would be what you tell me.
Man, I guess if I was recommending someone to watch the show, I guess I probably would tell them to just watch the movie, because I feel like some people might want a more overall, I guess, ending that isn't, I guess, just kind of nitpicking what exactly it wants to end. I mean, it just continues where everything left off. So yeah, I guess I would just say watch the End of Evangelion.
Have you watched Rebuild? Any of the Rebuilds?
No, I do plan to, though, now that they're all on Netflix. But yeah, watch them subbed.
Okay, yeah. So no, they're on Amazon.
Yeah, no, that's like subbed.
Oh, subbed. Oh, did you watch Evangelion on Netflix subbed?
Yeah, I watched it with subtitles. I haven't seen
so
any of it.
I'm one of those guys that. So I'm one of those guys that watches anime dubbed. I don't know if you've ever seen any anime dubbed. Or I'm assuming you saw Naruto and stuff like that dubbed.
Pokemon.
I don't really count Dragon Ball Z.
When we started, but once I was watching it on my own, I definitely watched it subbed. I watch it dubbed because that's just how it's available. I think the only exception is like Desert Punk, where I watched both subbed and dubbed. Pretty short anime, and I definitely preferred the dub, as with probably Cowboy Bebop and Trigun, but those are kind of more universally like, yeah, the dubs are better. Or, you know, just because the dub just doesn't suck, because it's like they just do such a good job that I kind of believe the emotion of the character they're going through, the delivery. Yeah, so I'm sure there's like a bunch
Full
of
Metal
others.
Alchemist is one of them.
Oh, yeah.
Did you ever see Full Metal Alchemist dubbed?
I don't think so, but I've seen clips of it dubbed, and I'm like, oh, it doesn't sound bad, but the sub was the sword I chose to fall on.
Fall on. Yeah. So I watched the Netflix release dubbed, and they, like I said, they had to do a whole redubbing. So they used brand new actors from what I remembered back in 2008. And of course, yeah, you obviously look at the credits. Yeah, it's a completely different cast. So I was like, all right, whatever. I'll get used to it. And then I watched Evangelion 1.0, the first rebuild movies, and they used the OG cast. And it just, now I have these two different voices in my head, and now I can't tell if I would have preferred the new cast in these movies, or if, like, you know, the OGs are the way to go. And I can't watch them in Japanese either, because I feel like I would have to rewatch all of the original series in Japanese to really I feel like I've got to do it all dubbed or all subbed. I'm already halfway done with the with all dubbed. So now I'm stuck in this place where, like, I just don't understand why they just didn't use. Well, I guess I understand, because when Rebuild happened, the Rebuild Up happened, they still hadn't redubbed anything with Netflix. But yeah, now I'm stuck in this weird place with these movies, and I don't know. I don't know what to do.
It's funny that, like, there aren't many properties where you could run into this problem, but Evangelion is kind of notorious for, like, which dub you have and that kind of stuff. Like, I know, like, recently, a Ultimate Collector's Edition, like, this is, like, the first time ever, the show, the first 26 episodes, and those first two movies. Oh, that's right,
it released, huh?
Like, they were just released for pre-order on Blu-ray for the first time ever, and it sold out in the first day. Kind of crazy.
Damn it!
And actually,
I knew that was going to happen this week. I just forgot. It was on Thursday.
Yeah, they had a whole countdown and everything.
I totally forgot.
And actually managed to get a pre-order. Pretty happy with that.
Oh,
but don't fret, because on the 30th. I mean, but that's just the Ultimate Edition. Like, they're gonna release the details for the Standard Edition on the 30th of August. So there's still gonna be a box of stores that just has the Blu-rays. It's not like the random doodads. Like the art book and the Angel paperweight and stuff that Ultimate Editions usually come with. But like, that one I know comes with, like, it comes with 4 voice tracks, which is interesting. It has, like, the new Netflix Japanese and English dubbing, and it also has the classic Japanese and English dubbing. So it has both.
Wait, what? Oh, god damn it. That's what I would have done. That's annoying. I totally forgot.
And the one point that is also very divisive about this collection in particular, that has some, I guess, the international people angry, is that this is a blurb on it that just says international releases of Evangelion will not have Fly Me to the Moon. So I guess only the US version of this bundle is going to have it. Which,
like,
it's
wait, the song?
There's an end credits theme called Fly Me to the Moon that plays at the end of each episode of the original version. But the Netflix version, I guess, didn't have the rights to play that song.
But so not the Frank Sinatra song, like a different song.
I'm pretty sure it's a different one.
Okay.
But instead, you just get, like, ominous, creepy piano playing at the end of each episode. But, like, the original version is, like, kind of like a slow samba elevator music of, like, some woman singing Fly Me to the Moon and some other lyrics. But, it's like something that's heavily associated with Evangelion. And for the Ultimate Edition to not have it in the international versions, obviously upset some people. But yeah, raise the bundle.
God damn it! I wonder what the StockX price for this is going to be.
I know. Almost kind of.
I might be just insane to get it. I'm reading here that that's the pre-order price, which is a lot of money.
If it hadn't sold out, because I think it was $278 with tax.
Yeah.
But if the pre-order hadn't sold out, I think they were saying, like, because it's going to be released on December 9, and they were saying, like, oh, if we don't sell our 5,000 copies, by this date, during that pre-order period, then it would go back to its normal price of, like, 320 something bucks without tax, which is, like, goddamn. So kind of glad that got the pre-order. I just happened to see the tweet right when it went out, and I'm like, oh.
I don't understand how they thought that this wouldn't sell out. They only made 5,000 copies.
Yeah, it's kind of short-sighted. Like,
Did they honestly think that it wasn't?
Even if people
demand for this,
even if some people are like have some qualms with it, like it's obviously gonna sell out. It's Evangelion, and like there's just no way it's not. And a good chunk of them, at least a quarter of them, are just gonna be scalped. Like they're just There's no way no one's gonna not buy this and think like, oh, I could resell it. So
and you're doing this when 4.0. I'm just gonna call it 4. I'm not gonna call it Thrice Upon a Time. When 4.0 is releasing, like there's this fervor for Evangelion right now that hasn't been seen since the last movie came out back in like 2013. Whenever 3.0 came out,
it's been 7 years.
Wow. So G Kids. Yeah, I believe so. This movie took forever to come out. Because Ano, who was the creator of the show, is just like a perfectionist. I'll be very curious to see what exactly they changed because 2.0 is right from the beginning they introduced a brand new character. She's the one that, I don't know if you've seen any fan art or any official art, but it's the girl with the pink suit with glasses.
No, yeah, I've definitely seen her around. Like when we went to Japan and we went to the Evangelion store. This is before I seen the show. Like, I just saw like those 4 characters. It's like, oh, it's Rei, Asuka, Shinji, and Pink Girl. And then I saw the show, and I'm not like, oh, I don't remember this character. And then we saw some more merch, and I asked my brother about it. Like, oh, yeah, she's from Rebuild. I'm like, oh, okay, it's an extra character, but yeah,
I'll probably have impressions of the entire series, or the entire Rebuild series next week. I'm just gonna have to live with myself and just watch the dub with the OG voices because I do remember those voices very fondly, but considering that it's been over 10 years since I saw it with those voices, it's definitely a bit of a shock, I guess is the best word that I can use to describe it. But yeah, aside from that, I don't think we got anything else that we want to talk about, do we?
Don't think so. Jason, how's your cats doing?
They're okay. Thanks for asking. Everyone's healing up after some various surgeries and infections and medicine and whatnot. But yeah, everyone's good. I do have a parting anecdote to share as we wrap up the episode. This comes from Twitter. I'm not vouching for his user, but it's someone named Pink Ranger LB, and they claim they went to law school and learned the following. I'm just going to read it to you, and that could be maybe our last thing we touch on before we wrap up. So, almost any craft going into international waters is going to have guns on board. Even lifeboats have one in the emergency kit. Trust me, this is going somewhere. The commanding officer of a vessel, if necessary to prevent harm to the group, can legally kill a person, a kind of group self-defense. On cruise ship lifeboats, the assigned commanding officers are usually onboard performers from the cruise. They know how to work a crowd, speak in public, etc. They'd only ever take this role in an extreme emergency, obviously, but is planned for. Disney cruises are no exception, and I looked this up. The performers are the assigned commanding officers on the lifeboats. In an emergency, on lifeboats, if you're acting in a way that threatens the group, Elsa from Frozen may be legally justified in killing you. So just chew on that. Disney princesses are legally allowed to kill you. That's the last thing I have for this episode.
Chew on that. Well, I guess with that, we'll end the show. Housekeeping. I don't have my notes in front of me. Jason, can you do the housekeeping?
I sure can. I love this almost more than telling you that Disney princesses can kill. So, you can find us on all the different apps. If you use a podcast app, we're there. Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spotify, Pandora, iHeartRadio, YouTube. Our channel is Random Nintendo.com. We are on Twitter at Random Nintendo, which you will want to follow to make sure you don't miss any random Nontendos or random Nintendos. For example, next week we're back on Sunday with an episode that'll be covering the Pokemon Presents, WarioWare Get Together's demo, maybe Great Ace Attorney, who knows what else. So follow us to find out. Individually, we're on Twitter. I'm JSR7. Angel is Wero, WEIRO _O. Kevin is KVN Gomi. Normally, Kevin, this is when you then throw to me the final word, but I feel like I kind of already did it with the Disney things. I'm going to throw it to you. What's your final word?
Oh, crap. I was not expecting this. God damn. No, I don't have a final word. Good night, everybody, or good morning. Whatever. You heard the episode.